I have the absolute honor. This is our last one today. The lady I have the absolute honor, yeah, you should be running, to introduce. Started her career in the Australian Army at 17. There's some love. There's some love.
Woo!
She was the very first female pyrotechnician. I can just imagine it too. And entered the corporate world after her Army career. At 27, she burnt out, but reinvented herself as a naturopath. For more than 25 years, she's worked as a naturopath and a professional speaker. She has published 12 books and has spoken in over 13 countries. She prides herself in breaking new ground and lives her true self and encourages others to do the same. She is living her why in founding her charity, the Q Foundation, which brings hope, health, happiness to children in need. Ladies and gentlemen, Jen Jefferies!
Love it.
One
Love
day I'm
it.
going to take you guys up on being my girl, you know that.
I love you.
New York Times best-selling author, Dr. Steve Maraboli said, "There is nothing more beautiful than seeing a person being themselves." As a gay woman who came out in the 1970s, this quote really impacted me. January 1979. I was oh so young and oh so innocent in every way. I was 17 years old, first time away from home. And I was so excited. I was off joining the Australian Regular Army, which I had wanted to do since I was 12 years old. I was marching on to the 1st Recruit Training Battalion in country New South Wales, Wagga Wagga. Sir! This was my first real posting. For years, I had dreamed of this moment. And when I marched on, there was 1,600 men and 6 women. I knew how to do what I was told. I knew the skills of being a soldier, and I was a great soldier. What I didn't know was how to be me. So when it was time for me to finally be out there in the world, I was lost. I was lost because I knew that I loved women. And not one or 100 or 1,000 of those men held anything for me. In basic training, girls, they've got abs, shoulders, and get around half the time with their shirts off, and they would make any centerfold. They had nothing for me. So I had no idea how to express myself. And what I did was, I took on the only thing I knew. The thing was, this only showed half of me, one aspect. And the way I dealt with that was to turn to alcohol. And at 17 years old, I was an alcoholic. On payday, it was spirits. 2 weeks later, the following payday, I was now broke. And it was $2 flagons of port or anything I could get my hands on. To cover up how I was feeling and being all I knew, I was as aggressive as any man on that base. I was so in your face and obnoxious, I terrified women. I know, seriously? I want to play with them and I'm terrifying them. The alcohol continued. And eventually it led to blackouts, where I would lose days and days. No conscious knowing of what I had been up to. The time that I had to literally kind of bring myself to the world, I had no idea how to bring myself to the world. I was so lost. I just stopped being myself. Eventually, I left the army because being out in the army in the 70s was not cool. I left the army after 3 years and it totally broke my heart. I went off and I drove trucks for a few years and then I joined the pharmacy industry. That was the 80s. It was a time of big dresses. Big shoulder pads. Oh, I forgot to show you an army flick. There you go. That was me in the army. Big shoulder pads. Big hair. I had an afro. Just saying. I had an afro. But it was also the time of big pharmaceutical companies, big business lunches and big dinners that all revolved around alcohol. And I was good at my job. However, I didn't feel like a leader. I didn't feel qualified to lead in that position because I just felt like I didn't fit in. So I did a 180 and I put on another mask. This time, it was one of dresses. I honestly owned a dress just like that. I wore the high heel shoes, the afro, the whole bit. How well do you think I fit in? Did I? But I was questioning my leadership because I didn't fit in. The drinking continued through the pharmacy days until one day it hit a point. When I went to the local camera shop, where we used to do in those days was take photos to get developed. Yes, I'm that old. And I walked into the shop and the shop assistant looked at me with a look of pure disgust. And she laid my photos out on the counter saying, "Are these your photographs?" And I had to say, the hardest thing I've ever said in my life. And that was yes. The photograph showed me the big butch dyke, the alcoholic, and one very lost woman. When I saw those photos, I knew I had some serious shit to clean up in my life. Who's ever been in that spot? Thank you. So at 27, I started to feel. I'd been hiding from my emotions all those years. Had this mask on that no one was going to get through. And I never dreamt that the first time I would get to feel, the feelings would be those of disgust. Because I had no memory of what was in those photographs. So at 27, I took off that mask. And I decided to be the real me. I got sober. And I started to get in touch with my emotions. I started to feel for the first time in my life. I believe that everybody is a natural-born leader. The thing is, most people will never walk into those leadership shoes, or they will, and they will be incongruent like I was. I believe that they have to feel you to follow you. And that my best self is my real self. In 1989, I went to a personal development course. I was sent there with work, and we were all given the job, or the task of being someone for a weekend, 3-day course, where we had to be in character and dress up and kind of feel what it had been like to walk in that person's shoes for the weekend. And I was given Mother Teresa. I was sober by this stage. And I was terrified. Terrified. So the mask came out again. Went and bought a sheet, chucked some lines on the top, walked around all weekend going, "Oh, bless you, my son. Jimmy, sorry, mate, there's not enough of these in the world for you. I love you, but there's not." I was still in a mask. And at some time that weekend, we all had to go to the front of the room and just share what it had been like to feel like being that person for the course. I did everything to avoid going to that front of the room. I was terrified of speaking and talking about feelings. That was never going to happen. Eventually, it was the last session of the last day, and I knew it had to happen. The trainer was cool, a bit David Woodish, in that he made me feel safe to just go to the front of the room, not have to say anything, but just to share how I felt. I went, okay, the little head chatter, I can do that, but nothing else. So I went to the front of the room. I stood there for the longest time, in silence, just looking around. The noise in my head was huge. It's saying things like, "You don't have to do this. This is crap. How the hell does dressing up like Mother Teresa do anything to help you?" You don't have to do anything that you don't want to. And yet I stood there. And eventually my eyes caught the eyes of a woman in the audience. Outside of this course, I knew her, and she was a high society woman. And I'd always felt like she looked down on me. Down on me? Seriously? She was given the job of being a bag lady for the weekend. You know, the bag lady, it's like the lady pushes all her belongings around the street, lives on the street and all that stuff. So I'm standing in the front of the room and eventually lock eyes on her. And in a very non-Mother Teresa way, I said, I don't feel sorry for people like that bag lady living on the street with nothing. I feel sorry for that woman being something that she's bloody not. And that moment, I realized that I was looking into a mirror. It was only through being sober that I could feel it. You see, when I was in the army, one of my army mates said to me, you behave the way that you think people think you should behave being gay. And I realized at that moment, so many years later, I still was. So I'd gotten sober and I was starting to feel, but I still wore the mask. John Maxwell says, a level 5 pinnacle leader, people follow you because of who you are and what you represent. The only way they can follow you and see what you represent is by feeling you. They need to know all of you, warts and all. I happen to love women. Whether it was a guy you wanted at some stage, some travel, some children, that job everyone said you shouldn't go and get, we've all had something that people didn't agree with in our lives. And you put on a mask. My mask was Big Butch Dyke. And I'm totally cool with that name, by the way. For me nowadays, it's a very affectionate term. For Sarah, she's having a heart attack right now. Because she's not a lesbian, she's just married to a woman, but that's another story. I was put on this earth to challenge you. I love you, lady. The thing is, guys, my mask was Big Butch Dyke. What's yours? Is yours being a workaholic? Is yours being a perfectionist? Is yours being someone who says yes all the time when all you want to do is say no? Today I can wear a dress like I did really recently. Guys, don't just say you don't wear masks, because people will see through you. They see through any mask like my mate in the army did. People need to feel you, to follow you. Today I can wear that dress because I'm a feminine, caring woman, whether I'm in a dress or in a suit. I'm me. Straight up, no mask, and no longer an alcoholic. And I dare you all to let them feel you and to be real with your emotions so that you can truly lead. Because I can't tell you how damn cool that feels to be the real you. Thank you.